What are we doing? Expansion?
Expansion.
All the way up. I'm all the way up. Nothing can stop me. I'm all the way up. Episode 2.
We're talking about expansion. In all ways.
In all ways.
You opened a second location in Lake Nona.
We did. 2017.
How were you feeling? Were you like, I'm ready, I'm in it, let's do it? Were you stoked? Were you scared? How were you feeling?
Yeah, going from 1 to 2, it's always, I think, harder than opening, they say like 5 stores, 10 stores, because your structure is not there, right? So it's, you're trying to build the structure to be able to grow and to do the same thing in sales and, to be able to manage people, because you go from 20 to 25 people to 50 people, right? So it was a bit of a challenge. Yeah, sure, I was scared, absolutely. I mean, we're making a big investment. At that point I was like, I can't fail because I want to keep expanding and opening more stores, and obviously that was a bit of a challenge because like we had construction issues, with the store. We had hiring issues with the store. We had hired a manager, and shortly after we opened, he left.
Wow. Okay, so you're what, a month or 2 in, and this manager?
I don't even think it was a month. I think it was like 2 weeks in. He just couldn't handle the pressure. I mean, that store opened.
Like lying around the building,
yeah,
rapping in the parking lot.
It was crazy. It was nuts. It was something like, I was like, wow, we hit it. And, but that's the way that area is, right? So people get really excited about a concept. They go for the first 3 months, try it out, and then tapers off. I hadn't experienced that at Mills. So it was a very different, getting to know the habits of people there.
Sure. And would you say then, like, at that point you were like a little bit like shell-shocked because you're like, okay, you didn't experience this with the first location. You saw this huge influx, and then obviously like it kind of tapered off, like you said. And then you're like, what do I do?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was not as consistent as Mills. I mean, my original store was, it grew, right? It grew over the years, and then it's been consistent for the last 6 years. Obviously, COVID didn't help that year, but I mean, it's been pretty consistent in that sense. So,
sure.
But Lake Nona was a bit different, and obviously you learn from that because it had different tendencies. It had a different location, different people, right? More families. The Mills area, I think it was a little bit more young, trendy, crowd. So it was a bit different in patterns, like their eating patterns. By 8 o'clock, that area, dies down.
Sure.
At 8 o'clock at Mills, we're getting our second pop for night. So yeah, it was obviously a bit of a challenge, and I think it was great though, in having that second store and learning some of the things obviously that the concept needs to grow in other areas, right? Florida or whatever we decide to go.
Sure. Let's rewind a little bit. When you decided to open the second location, what was it like? You just found this space and it was like move-in ready, or you still had a lot of like construction and like renovations to do? And then obviously aesthetically, for those of you who never frequented the Lake Nona location, it's very different than Mills.
There was a burger joint there. Okay. That had closed. So obviously as you go in, you think it's going to be a lot less investment to open, and then when you get into it and trying to put your concept into something that was so different. I mean, it was decorated differently. It was It had good bones, but there was just a lot to do to get it to look like Big Floyd's and to add a smoker, right? So they made us build an outside smoker room, and that was super expensive. So, you know, and in my head, I was trying to change the concept in terms of some of the things that weren't working at Mills, right? It had higher ceiling height. It was a bigger room. The decoration was a bit different.
Sure.
Music, everything. And those were some of the things that people really liked about Mills, which is nuts to me, because at the end of the day, like 9-foot ceilings are not too tall.
Right.
But it gives it a very warm feeling. Small spaces, tight spaces, loud music, you know, line out the door. Those type of things are what people really like.
Yeah.
So it really messed me up.
So you kind of like went into the second location trying to improve on some things that you thought were maybe hindrances, but then really only come to find out they are assets almost.
Assets, yeah. I mean, the bar, for example, I didn't do a bar in Lake Nona. I should have done a bar. But, you know.
You live and you learn.
Yeah, you live and learn, but it's obviously a frustrating situation when you're trying to expand and build on a concept and trying to get to 50 stores. It's just like your second store, you made some mistakes, and obviously then COVID hits, and
then things take a whole different turn.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we get to that, like, what were some of the things that you were worried about opening another location? You know, a lot of times you'll hear like, oh, the energy is different, or oh, the food isn't as good here, or, you know, we've all heard as companies grow, especially quickly, quality seems to go down. So like, what were you doing and what was like put in place to avoid these things?
Yeah, quality was one of the biggest worries that I had. Obviously we have a system, but at the end of the day, you're only as good as the manager that's in the store, right? So I think management is very important, because the restaurants take the attitude of whatever manager there is.
Sure.
In my opinion. I mean, this is strictly obviously my opinion, but I was worried about the challenges of replicating the food and making it consistent, right? Because it's all about the food, about the service, right? And just, you know, the traveling back and forth to get to that store and check on that store every day. And, you know, I'm a pretty active owner.
Yes, you are.
Super active, I think, in the sense that I like to be very involved. I like to know everything. So I guess in that sense, I was very nervous about that. I was nervous about labor in that area, finding the right staff.
Sure.
It's an up-and-coming area, so it's just, you know, it's tough to find people.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, I think it's the normal everyday things that we worry about when we open concepts. I mean,
not just restaurants.
I just think everything. And, you know,
starting something new, this is what I'm worried about, kind of thing.
Yeah. And obviously, I think a lot of people felt that Mills was very successful, and then when they go and talk about Lake Nona, every time that I would run into somebody, they would ask me like, hey, how's Lake Nona doing? And I was like, man, can you just ask me how I'm doing?
Right.
Like, I already have enough pressure as it is. You know, what's going on with that? What's going on with this? How's it going?
Yeah.
It's just the nature of the business, I guess.
So you get there, you're about to open. What was the training like? Did you guys spend like a month training?
We spent 3 weeks training.
Okay.
I had brought in an advisor to work with us because we were going to continue expansion quick. And he calendared everything, and we had 3 good weeks of training. We had a good friends and family. We had a great soft opening, and then all of a sudden, when we opened, it was just bunkers how busy it was. But we did really good. I think the store was doing really good. The food quality was great, and we were able. I mean, we opened end of March, starting of April. We did April, May, June. You know, it was super busy, and then June's soft for restaurants anyways.
Right. The summertime is usually a little bit slower.
Yeah, people go away, so we experienced that, and then just it fell in the normal patterns. Yeah.
Sure. And then with that area, since it is so family driven, like we were just saying, like June was kind of soft. Did you see that kind of more in a significant manner in terms of sales, because a lot of people do go away for vacation, and that's kind of your general demographic over there?
Yeah, we saw it. We saw how even the tendency of time changes.
Sure.
Tendency of time and in terms of like what time do they eat?
Right.
What time are they gonna go and pick up?
Probably like a 5:30, 6 o'clock dinner rush, as opposed to like
so
6:37 and then another one at 9 for Mills.
Yeah. So I was so it was so uneven that I was trying to figure it out. And obviously I'm not a big organization, so I don't have, the staff to just do everything for me. So it was a challenge. I mean, I was trying to figure it out. I was trying to figure how to continue to build the brand, how to make it effective in that area, how to get people to know that we were there. I mean, the location, it's basically it was on Narcoossee Road, so people could see it, but
sure.
It's the same as Mills, right? People pass by driving and they go like, oh, I continue to see it, but I never stop in.
Right.
I'm like, stop in.
Yeah.
Why don't you stop in? I still meet people 7 years later that walk or drive by Mills and say, oh, I should stop in. Yeah. Why don't you?
Come in. Yeah.
Come in.
All right. Lake Nona opens. It's a little bit of a different vibe. You're seeing a little bit of different trends. And then, for lack of better words, it's just a little bit slower than Mills. And now, how are you feeling? Like, what kind of strategies did you put into place? Because you're like, okay, let's get sales going. Like, did you submerge yourself into the community? Did you do like guerrilla marketing? What did you start putting in place?
Yeah, we did a bunch of events with people around the area. We started doing Kids Eat Free Wednesdays. We started, making donations to area baseball teams or football teams, whatever we could do to get people to know that we were there. And yeah, guerrilla marketing, trying to target that area specifically with, Facebook and Instagram but still, it was still a challenge. I mean, it was still a challenge, and it necessarily not a bad one, but just it's very interesting as a brand when you're growing to figure out those things so that you know exactly what you need to do.
What's working, what's not working.
What's working and not working. And then, Kids Eat Free Wednesdays over there worked fantastic, and Mills, it was like crickets.
Right. And it's still kind of hit or miss now. It's like sometimes you'll get like 5 or 6 families that come in and they know all about it, and then there are weeks where nothing happens.
Oh, over there it was just the night,
right? The busiest night of the week, probably.
Yeah, pretty much. And then weekends was different. Weekends people leave the area, or they order to their house and stuff like that, so it was different too. I mean, it was just a different
trend.
Everything was different trending wise,
right?
So I imagine that's obviously what big companies go through, right? When they trend,
right?
It's just like, okay, the demographics are different. Now, I look at it more of a scientific thing. Trying to understand your customer base, trying to understand the demographics, and making sure that we're hitting those demographics, right?
Sure.
And that's just happened, obviously, through talking to people and understanding the business. So.
Right. Fast forward now, the pandemic hits, and it impacts that area and that store significantly in a very quick manner.
Right? It does, yeah.
What do you do? What are you thinking? Obviously, this is across the board for everyone, kind of like this panic mode, and you have to shift so fast, but sometimes it doesn't always work out.
At that point, when they start announcing closures, right? The previous week, we had won Best Barbecue in the Orlando Sentinel, or 2 weeks prior. So our sales were fantastic, right? Both stores were doing great. All of a sudden, this happens. They start talking about closing down dining, in-store dining.
Sure.
And 2 of the staff members think they have it, right? They start freaking out. So I decide at that point, we got to make sure that we survive something like this, because I thought that it was going to happen. I mean, it was going to take much longer than people were talking about.
Right.
And I said, well, let's shut that store down for the moment, figure it out, like while we understand what's going to happen with the pandemic, and then, we'll
resume
go back
from there.
We'll resume back from there. But I mean, as the pandemic started obviously going, we started doing deliveries. We started doing everything out of one store just to keep afloat,
right,
and understand how the cash flow was going to go, because bills kept coming. They don't stop.
Payroll keeps coming.
Everything keeps coming. So I just wanted to make sure that we survived as a company for once. Like, that's the most important thing for me at that point.
Sure.
So, yeah, we made the decision to close it at that time, thinking obviously that we were going to get back into it coming up. But the pandemic, threw us for a loop.
Sure. And it was kind of significantly longer in terms of closure than most people would have expected.
Yeah, because we were able to open, June, right?
I think it was like June, July-ish.
Yeah. So it was just interesting in how it changed that whole area too.
Right.
Drive-throughs, all the stores that weren't doing a lot of business, like McDonald's, Taco Bell, started doing a bunch of business.
Sure.
Because of the drive-throughs, less human interaction, all that stuff. So people started changing their patterns.
Right.
And obviously, all the business in that area was affected by it. So
sure. Everywhere, but significantly there.
Yeah, significantly there. Families weren't going out.
No.
So they were staying at home. The kids are at home studying. It's a little bit more difficult to go out. Yeah. But yeah.
I remember when, you guys opted to close that store in the temporary manner. We still did a lot of doorstep deliveries out there in hopes to kind of keep a presence there. Mm-hmm. Because ultimately the goal was to reopen at that point. What was that like? Was it received well? I know there were certain areas in Central Florida that were super popular. And if my memory serves correctly, Lake Nona was.
Yeah.
When we did have the family meal tour, it was pretty busy. So
it was super busy. Lake Nona was probably the second busiest area in town. People love the family meals, love having it delivered to their house. Yeah. It was a good value, right? It's what kept us alive, really. Sure. And the people in Lake Nona, I think, really liked the fact that you could deliver it straight to them.
Right.
And it was easy. So, yeah, it worked out great.
It was a great pivot.
Yeah, it was a great pivot for the company, yeah.
The store winds up closing, unfortunately, and obviously people will coin it as, and I say this in air quotes, as a failure. But I'm sure you kind of see it as a lesson learned. And how did you deal with it? How did you bounce back personally?
I saw it as a failure. But I'm pretty hard on myself.
Yes, you are. That's all of us. We're all our own, worst critic.
I'm my own worst critic. And at that point, I saw it as a bad failure for me. You're in the restaurant business. You're trying to expand a concept, and your second store closes. What do you do now?
Yeah.
Right? I was running on fumes. So basically, obviously we were from March through June, and then that happens. And at that point, I think I kind of shut down for a little bit. Kind of got obviously pretty frustrated and trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I thought about selling the concept and just trying to go into a different business.
Sure.
But the more I thought about it, I was like, hey, I'm already in it. I've given it so much of my life. I mean, because for real, I've given it all. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, they threw you for a loop. What are you going to do, right? And I read a lot. So at that point, I thought the right thing to do is what they call burn the boat, right? And that means basically you're going to an island, you're burning the boat, you're going to survive. So I decided my expansion plan might be just a little bit different, right? And decided that I was going to open another concept, or another 2 concepts actually. Okay. Which that's what we're working on right now, right?
Right. Currently, present day, working on that.
Present day, working on that. We'll announce it eventually, but one of them is a pizza joint called Pizza, and the other one is a breakfast, brunch, lunch joint called Peggy Floyd's.
Because you've always wanted to open a diner.
I've always wanted to open a diner. I like diner food. I like burgers. I like grilled cheese. I like breakfast.
Your trainer does not like any of that.
Yeah, he doesn't like that.
Obviously kind of hit some low points. I think personally you've bounced back super quick, and now you're on the move essentially to open not just more Pig Floyd's locations, but other concepts.
I think I have to thank my psychologist that I've been seeing for the last 15 years.
Yeah, and that you've been Zooming with and you're upset about.
I hate Zoom. I hate Zoom with my psychologist. Maureen, go back to your office.
Okay, so you have a second concept pretty much in the creative / construction phase.
Yeah.
And it's less than a mile down the street from Mills?
Yeah.
Is that by design, or is that a little bit of a safety net? What was the premise behind it?
So I'll give you a little history on the building that we're taking over. It's a building that I've wanted 7 years.
Okay, so you've been like hunting it or like watching it from afar?
No, I originally kind of signed it before. Well, I mean, I had a contract to put Pig Floyd's there. Okay. But at that point, they had a relationship with the new owner, which they're great people, and they decided to go with them, and it worked out. And they bought the building eventually.
Okay.
And I've been after them saying that I wanted to put something there. And finally it came through 7 years later. But I'm telling you, I've been after this building forever. So I didn't know what concept I was going to put in there. I mean, at one point I thought I was going to put acai bowls and all that stuff. But obviously, as my friendship grew with my friend Al, and we kept talking about pizza, and I like pizza a lot, and I had the concept in my head. I said, pizza's perfect. Let's do it there.
I think it was the end of last year that you found out you could obtain this space, or that it was potentially going to be available.
Yeah, I started negotiating it probably October, or maybe before. Yeah, September. Okay. That I knew that it was going to happen. I ended up signing it in December, and then, just starting
work in progress.
And it's just, obviously it's a change of use, so it's a little difficult in terms of construction. Sure. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be something. I think it's going to be fantastic because it's going to bring in the outside area, mm-hmm. which is huge. It's bigger than the interior. Right. So it's going to be a party,
It's going to be great.
It's going to be great. It's going to be a party.
I'm super stoked. I've seen some renderings, and I'm pretty excited about it. So, all right. So in terms of Pig Floyd's, where do you see the next location for Pig Floyd's?
I've been eyeing South Florida. as we grow, I think it's very important, and this is, I think, a different look at even demographics. Demographics down there are very strong. Mm-hmm. We have a great opportunity to be able to open 5 units in the South Florida area, which makes it feasible for me to travel.
Right.
At the same time, I think it's a more traveled to area, which helps the brand in general, because like if you see Instagram and Facebook for brands that are from South Florida, you see the numbers are, the followers are ridiculous, the engagement is ridiculous. So it's just so different than obviously what we encounter here in Orlando. And I think obviously I'll go north, Jacksonville, Atlanta, Nashville, Charlotte. I mean, some of the cities that I really think that the concept would work.
Right.
But yeah, I'm still on board. I still think that we should open, or get to open 50 units. It's just timing was different, and the plan's a little different now, because I'm obviously trying to figure out how can we effectively create a structure that we not only go with one concept, but we can build on a couple of concepts. Like, hey, I have Pig Floyd's, yeah, but I can bring Pigza or I can bring Peggy Floyd's along and make it effective for like a management situation where we can manage 3 different concepts with one area manager.
Right. So with that being said, how hard is it to create that infrastructure? What are you doing to create it? And where do you feel like you're struggling the most in it? Because I'm sure, not just us or our brand, this is kind of a overall general thing. It's like, it's hard to create that structure, and it's hard to build something to that magnitude and then apply it.
Well, the first issue is building brand identity, right? Pig Floyd's has a brand identity that's 7 years old. Pigza and Peggy Floyd's don't. So that's a whole process that's going to take some time to build. We've hired obviously people that have knowledge of an expansion.
Sure.
And we're working on getting it right in terms of operations, book-wise, and having the right structure in place to know that everything that goes from turning on the light to turning on the smoker to, how much rub goes on meat, all that has to be in a book so that people understand and know and learn. I think you come from that world, right?
I do come from that world.
You work for Tijuana Flats, so, and that's it. Like, it's the book. You have to learn it. You have to learn every procedure, every way of engaging. Obviously, I fought that for a long time.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to say I don't love structure, but I don't love structure.
Right.
But everybody asked for it. So I had to change.
Sure.
And now that I do follow some sort of structure, it's really good, obviously, for the organization and how things happen, and everything is planned. But I think that's part of my immaturity that I had before, that I didn't like it. I didn't like the structure. I didn't like being told
what to do,
when to do it. Yeah. And I think that's why obviously I went into business by myself. And people ask me, why did you play basketball? You're 6'8", you should have done it. Like, I'm not into team sports. I'm more into individual. I always played golf, and I always thought that I was responsible for my north. So that's the same thing that I followed in business.
Sure. Now that you're putting these things into place, what are some like hiccups that you're seeing, or what are some struggles that you're seeing?
Money. It's very expensive to create a structure.
Sure.
And obviously as the stores start opening, they start paying for it, but at the end of the day, you almost have to put the money up front
before you see anything
for a long time. And that's tough because, in this current situation that we're in right now, it's just like,
you don't know what's going to happen.
You don't know, right? Yeah. Sure. So I'm taking a huge risk, but at the end of the day, I think effectively it'll play out. Or, well, I mean, yeah, I burned the boat, so I'm stuck in it.
You're in it.
I'm in it. It's not. I'm not going anywhere.
You're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
You're in it to win it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's something that I think is very important as entrepreneurs. Is just that you decide that you're going to do something and go forward with it, and if it works, great, and if it doesn't work, just adjust and change the sails and see.
Keep it moving.
Yeah, see where the boat's going to take you.
And would you say that you're always adjusting every day?
Every day. I mean, the restaurant business as a whole has been throwing curveballs for the last 3 years. But I mean, now the biggest issue, and it's always been an issue in the business, is just labor, right? People that want to work in the restaurant business, they don't see it as an opportunity. They don't see it as a stepping stone in their career. If you're not growing rapidly and have opportunities for them, they just get bored and leave.
Right. And
try to find another opportunity doing something else. So that's the biggest challenge that you have as a restaurant guy. It's just like, hey, I need to grow, because if not, these people are not gonna
stay with me.
And I've been pretty lucky. I think Gretchen's been 4 years with me.
Yeah, she just celebrated 4 years.
4 years. You've been a year and a half?
A year and a half. Gavin's what, like 3 years? 2 years?
2 years. Gavin's 2 years in.
Justin's probably around myself.
Yeah, a year and a half too. So I mean, I have all you guys that have decided to stay around and
stick it out with you.
Stick it with me and deal with my craziness, I guess.
Okay, but let's be fair. Like, so again, those of you who don't know, Thomas is super hands-on. You'll see him pretty much every day in the restaurant at some point, but he's not a micromanager.
I'm not.
Like,
I really,
at all.
I'm not. I literally walk in there and I don't want to get involved.
No, he doesn't.
In the daily operation. I just want to watch and see, and then, you know, if I have to, I don't even want to call it coaching, but I want to obviously tell people they've been doing something different,
right,
or how to do something that I want to see. Well, then that's what I want to do, but I don't want to micromanage. I think micromanagement is one of the failures of leaders, right? They want to control every little single detail.
Yeah.
And I don't think, I mean,
it's really aggressive.
Yeah, it's aggressive. It creates a lot of challenges, because if I have a store manager, if I supersede him in front of everybody, it doesn't look good for him, right? So at the end of the day, I want him to be the leader.
Sure. And
I want to support him in his decisions, but I also have to make sure that the concept is going the direction that I want it to.
Yeah. What do you do in that case? Like, you see something, you rarely say anything on site or in that moment.
Yeah.
And then what is it? You just pull him aside the next day, or even like with me, pull me aside the next day, or whatever. Or you know, what is your go-to there?
I think the most intelligent thing is just to pull the person aside probably the next day, because there's so much going on
in those moments,
and there's a lot of heated, you know, conversation.
Yes.
Because, you know, when you're there on a Saturday night and
you're just getting pummeled for 4 hours straight.
That's right. I don't think they want to listen to me telling them what to do or not to do.
Right.
I think it's more of a next morning, hey, I got you coffee. Listen.
Let's chat.
Let's talk about this. I'm not really happy with it, right? I barely, you know, interact in terms of the staff. I don't want to tell them what to do, but when it gets to a point where the dishwasher is not doing what he needs to do, he's going to listen.
You're like, okay, now I really need to like get in there.
Yeah. A lot of feedback comes back in the sense that, you know, people feel that they have 7 different managers that they have to report to, or you know, this person told me this and you told me that, and I don't know what to do.
Right.
So that's very important, and I think in companies it's critical that one knows who's in charge,
and what the hierarchy is.
Yeah, so that it doesn't get out of hand. Right. And I had I had a challenge with that for many years at the beginning. You know, because I had a bunch of advisors telling me what to do, not to do, and giving me feedback. And, you know, people, and they would walk into the restaurant and tell people some stuff. And I was like, no, you can't do that. Right. So, yeah, it was a challenge.
So what is your next, like, hiring spree, I would say? Like, what are you looking for?
I'm looking for lifers.
I need somebody to be with me
for my life.
Forever.
For people that want to stay with me forever. No.
You're stuck with Gretchen and I.
I am. I'm stuck with you guys. It's okay. Yeah, just I think what I'm trying to create is obviously a growing company so that people get excited about working with Pig Floyds or with Pigza or with Peggy Floyd's. I mean, it's just a very interesting phenomena, which I call, because we pay sometimes even more than large companies.
Yeah.
But people go and work for large companies, right? Like Chipotle, like, because they're so big.
Right.
There's opportunities to expand. There's opportunities for you know, growing in the company and all these things. So that, I think, is the biggest concern, worry
that you have,
that I have right now as we try to figure it out.
Yeah. At the end of the day, Pig Floyd's is a pretty fun place to be. I know we have so many people that, like, will sit at the bar or even just be in the dining room and they're like, this is such a fun place. And then, you know, obviously when you're 5 hours in and, like I said, being pummeled for all 5 of those hours, you're like, yeah, it's great.
It's great.
But overall, it is a very fun place to work. You're always busy running around. So that's a win.
Yeah, it's great. So, I mean, I think the restaurant business, obviously, I think is a great business, but I'm in it. So
right. Same.
I'm going to sell it.
We are going to sell it.
And I think it'll get better. I mean, Uber, believe it or not, a lot of people don't realize that Uber really affected
this industry
so much more than what they see.
Right.
It changed patterns. It changed labor. It changed everything. So
now we're recovering from that and onward and upward.
That's it. There's nothing else to look for but up. Yep.
Okay, so next week on episode 3, what do we have to look forward to?
I'm going to bring in a friend of mine.
Awesome.
That owns McDonald's. And I think it's very important that we see the other side of the bill here. The complete other end of the spectrum. Yeah. She is a queen and so lovely. So she is great. I'm stoked. I talk to her every day pretty much. She's my best friend. And we talk about obviously the restaurant business and its challenges. Right. And I can only wait to hear, has completely different challenges, but yeah, her challenges are completely different. I mean, we seem to be pretty similar in the sense of how we interact with people. So it's really funny to see her side. Right. And when I tell her my side, obviously she doesn't get it. So we'll see next week if she's gonna get it. I think she's gonna get it. She's gonna get it. Cool. Okay, cool.